there's loose activities. And I'm not saying it's impossible, but there are people that have done enough research. Which makes sense because it's like, when your body starts to know that you're going to virus and then expel that person. But it's not a our guys. That's pretty good. Because it's so long.
It was well written. I don't know. Hello.
Hello.
Some people like it. A lot of people like it.
Hello.
Oh, Trey.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. Well, a couple of us.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
No one is here yet from the committee, so I guess it's 4 members.
I think they thought it was at 6 maybe because all the other meetings were at 6. Maybe they got it stopped.
Could be.
I was planning on coming, but I had a work issue, so sorry.
That's fine.
I can hear you better. It's all good to me, Marvin. I know, right?
Thank you for sending me that email. I sent a response to you.
Perfect. I'll have to check it out. I've been trying to be on vacation as much as I can.
Really important. I saw that and I was like, that's very interesting. I just hope that they can have something from a legal standpoint to kind of help out. You know.
So this is the last meeting. I feel like I kind of got the flow. I already got my numbers and, you know, what we'll coordinate to. Hey, Trey.
Yeah.
Hey.
Is your mom in Clearwater?
And then I was gonna type the notes up.
No, she was, but she just came home
Gotcha.
last
I just
weekend.
left Clearwater. I'm in Daytona. Hi, Robin.
Hello.
In Daytona. She just can't help herself to be on vacation.
I know, right? It's okay. I'm at a new spot again. I keep hopping around.
Todd is coming. He's in the parking lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
I will open the door.
let me go get him.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Then do we send the notes to anybody to approve them?
So, no, so
Just
you'll
type them up
present
and-
them on Thursday.
Okay.
And then
Nobody volunteered, so I'm like,
yeah, I think it's on. Sonia, did you take notes for the educational committee the other day?
I did not. I'm lucky enough to have Salome be my fill-in assistant.
I took the notes and I also recorded them because I'm the secretary. So I was just discussing with her because she's the secretary of the committee as a whole. I'm like, well, I'm the secretary of the subcommittee, so it's making sure that I know what I'm doing.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm
I gotta type the notes up still.
secretary of the first committee, and Salome just took notes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And I got out of the community. If that wasn't him?
Yeah, he was out there. I saw him.
Parked
Yeah,
by my car in the
he was
black.
parked unless he left or unless he's out. I don't know. He was in there. I saw him too.
Yeah.
It's hot.
Hi, Stephanie. How are you?
Maybe she'll read the file.
Go ahead and start.
Good.
All good.
Heck yeah.
Hi, in-person people.
Do you guys care if I sit down there and take my mask off? That's for sorry, I cannot stand these masks
Can
anymore.
they see you down there?
Can you see me if I come? Yeah, they can still see me.
Oh, yeah, you're
I
good.
just want to take my mask off because I can't breathe. Okay.
Son, you look sun-kissed.
You good with me sitting here?
Thank you. I have been beat. Yeah.
That's awesome. Hi, Todd.
What's happening?
Welcome back, Todd.
Thank you, sir.
Long time no see.
I was zooming in at the last meeting from the Hampton Inn in Columbia, Missouri.
Oh my goodness.
Good old Mizzou.
Good old Mizzou. They just announced they play Alabama the first game of the season, September
Nice.
26th.
Oh, that's a death wish.
That could be one and done.
Yeah.
That could be one and done.
Kind of like
Right.
Troy Pickwa.
Right, exactly.
Hey, Matt.
Leading this party.
Are we still waiting on anyone? Or
No, I think we're all.
Well, Mr.
It's
Block,
Kane.
is Kane coming? Kane and Mr. Block was added to.
yes. Text.
Might as well go ahead and get started. I wouldn't wait.
Yeah, we have a council meeting at 7 and they'll be using Zoom account. So we have to wrap up around 6:50.
I'll text Kane.
Thanks. All right, so let's go ahead. I know, let me see, in attendance, we have everybody except for Kane. And I guess we can just go ahead and start into our discussion of initiatives. It would be good if we could try to come up with some thought processes and how we would like to attack each one of them. I know that we looked at education already. We've looked at social. So we've pretty much pulled everything out of the list that we had as a group. So there's still some areas that are remaining. If we could go through the list and start to discuss what we like to see this committee do. Make some
This is
action.
employment, right?
This is employment.
Yes.
Yes.
Are we wearing these or not wearing these?
I wasn't wearing them. I just got sat down here and I couldn't breathe, but then you came in. So now I feel like I have to wear it because you're close to me.
You're 6 feet.
I don't care. I think we're 6 feet apart.
Okay, I think-
Yeah, I think we're 6 feet. Yeah,
I can't even touch you.
yeah.
There you go.
Good.
We're good.
So
I
but
can
before
scoot
we get
down.
started, Marvin, we
Yes.
need a secretary on the agenda. So Stephanie, have you
Yes.
volunteered for, listen at me. I gotta,
I'm going to volunteer you.
I get like I'm at work, but Stephanie, have you
That's
volunteered?
what happens when you don't show up.
Right. So I don't know who can be a secretary on this committee.
I will do my best to be a secretary.
Thank you.
We second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
So sad, so sorry.
Just kidding.
Awesome.
All right, I just didn't want to skip that. Sorry about,
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
Did you send out an agenda?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's very,
and a couple of,
it's pretty much the same agenda for all the subcommittees. So far.
yeah, the same attachment.
Yeah.
So, hey, I know from our community relations meeting, we had some topics that we talked about that could be left for the employment committee.
Yes.
And if I get to be too much, I'm sorry. I probably still am. I just got off of work, so
Hey,
if
we
I,
want to take control.
yeah, right. So forgive me if I become to be too much. What was some of
I
it?
will say because Marvin, every committee will give a presentation. Who's gonna lead, who's gonna present?
I thought the secretary
The
was going to be
secretary
the
will
one
be-
to bring back the report.
No, I'm good. This is what I was looking for.
Initiative.
Okay, so we're gonna discuss initiatives. Is that where we are now on the agenda? Since I just found it on my phone.
Yes.
So we're on the this is the employment committee, right? So
Absolutely.
I think I think there's two parts to potentially looking at employment initiatives. I think you need to look at both public employers and private employers, and if there's distinctions between those two that we want to look at. And I don't know what initiatives you would be looking at, but I think that one of the things that we need to look at least from the city perspective, and then I'll turn it all over, would be some sort of recruitment aspect in what we're doing to recruit really any sort of employees. I know from the private perspective, we have just announced that there's going to be, within a reasonable period of time, 400 new jobs with the Pella presentation. We have the 50 new jobs at IBEX. We have 50 new jobs that got announced yesterday at Agave and Rye, which may be more part-time stuff. And so and then Clopay is chomping at the bit for people. So I think the question there is, how do we transfer opportunities to individuals who want to work? And I think that's the primary question from me from a private employer perspective. From a public employer perspective, then I think you need to make sure that, what's the environment? What are people looking at? What sort of situations are there that exist? And I think those would be the issues that we'd be looking at.
So I will tell you that Thursday night, Tom Fenderberg is speaking, and so he'll talk about that. And Mark Warhorst is speaking from the school's perspective on how hiring happens. I will say all of those companies you mentioned have websites, even the city, where you can apply.
And I know, Sonia, you're probably familiar, just like I am, with what the Job Center does for our county with open interviews on Fridays. They have, and I'm familiar with this only because I work in probation, is they also have a Restored Citizens Boot Camp that they hold every 6 weeks, I think, 6 to 8 weeks. And we were supposed to send all of our people there if they weren't employed. That was one of the things that the director had got with the judges, and they wanted us to send our people there. And what they do there is it's for people who have questionable backgrounds, either because of criminal activity or they just don't have a steady work history. They have opportunities there to build a resume, to get some interviewing skills, and then they bring in different employers to interview them. Some of them leave with jobs, most of them leave with interviews, second interviews, and things like that. However, even being in the community and knowing of the resources, I didn't know about that particular one until I got into probation. So
what's it called again?
Restored Citizens Boot Camp.
Got it. Thank you.
That's not something that is very marketed, in my opinion.
No.
In fact, if you're not a self-directed person, even walking into the job center,
you're not going to get help.
Probably going to break relationship, feel like you were disrespected, and not get really what you need out of it.
Absolutely.
So it's a lot of, again, remarketing, communicating. I'm interested, Marvin, if we could add childcare to our list that we have. A lot of people don't realize it's a job to get to work. It's a job within itself. So transportation and childcare seem to be some of our biggest issues. In fact, at one point, the Chamber of Commerce had said that was kind of stopping people from wanting to build business here because we didn't have adequate childcare across the board, not just for one socioeconomic class, but for all classes. So looking at that, also looking at how many people are employed through temporary agencies. Are the temporary agencies helping our community members springboard into long-term employment, or is it trapping them into substandard employment to where they can't get benefits, hired in, so on and so forth across the gamut, looking at perhaps jobs and seeing like, do they fit women, you know, all the diverse areas, color, ethnicity, women. Can a Spanish speaking person go into Clopay and be trained adequately enough to have a job like that? Or are we having like, you know, migrant workers doing migrant worker only type jobs? I think, you know, looking at the overall demographic.
I would also add transportation in there as well, because if we have people who don't have a vehicle to get to point A to point B, that's also another issue.
Yeah, and also I think people, when we look at childcare, sometimes we look at it one-sided. Childcare also is another employment opportunity that a lot of people don't realize, that they can actually become an in-home childcare provider and paid by our state and vetted, especially within low socioeconomic communities. You might be afraid to go outside of your community, but so then let's cultivate people within the community to help sustain the community.
Doesn't Partners in Hope run Childcare Choices? Who runs Childcare Choices? Or whatever
Childcare
that's called?
Choices. They're out past Fulton Farms at the church, right at kind of the four-way, if you were going to go to Tip or on to Huber. So
Okay.
they're out there. We actually worked with them this year. There was supposed to be some changes at the government level that if you were not star rated, you would lose all of your funding from the government. And so I don't know how COVID has impacted that, but we hit that pretty hard at the beginning of the year before the COVID crisis. And then again, like people, that's kind of the number one thing they say: I don't have childcare, I don't have transportation to get to work. Also looking at providing access. I think, you know, old school employment, it's normal to have seniority, first shift, you know, you work real hard, you get up there. But what if some companies would actually look at providing first shift employment for mothers that are working, so they can get childcare, so they can get their foot in the door? Maybe again, after we foster a relationship, we could, you know, get some access to more stable employment. Because I think what we'll see is a lot of the low income or people that are saying they can't get hired in are usually second and third, and there's almost no access to transportation and childcare on those shifts.
Does the shelter still do the Rights to Work program? Do you know, Sonia?
The Rights to Work program actually is down the hall from me and Partners in Hope.
Okay,
it's ran
okay.
by, yeah, it's ran
So is
by
that still something
Ms.
that
Jameson. Yep,
Okay.
and the Miami County Continuum of Care, Jim
Okay.
Taylor. So they're down the hall from us.
Awesome. Okay.
That's a really good program, but they're also struggling in the reality of getting an employer to see what their stake is, what's your
Yeah.
return on investment, things like that. Again, it's, you know, employers will go, okay, so Partners in Hope deals with those social things, right? And I just pay you to work. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, we're at a tipping point. And so things called ERNs, employee resource networks, are popular now. It's just having a social service person in the factory to kind of deal with the crisis that's going on, so I can be a productive employee. So that's popular as well. I have
Does
a lot of
anybody
stuff on
have
those.
that you're aware of?
Say that again?
Does anyone have one of those that you're aware of? Does Clopay
Yeah,
Hobart?
actually, I have a very good friend that works for Marion Matters. It was actually on PBS, I believe. That is an employee resource network. I took the chamber to several years ago to try to set up. It's actually Jim Vanderholst is our connection. He created the employee resource network out of Michigan. So those are all parts and pieces that we can pull together and kind of go through and to see if that's something that would work for us. I'm trying to think what else. Felonies too. How many jobs actually take felons? And then maybe for some, again, I think everything is levels, right? Depending upon where you're at in your life, it might be access to expungements. How do we get people ready to get back to work? Things like that. We got Ginghamsburg has a car program. How can we connect them? A Tri-County comes to mind when we talk about people coming from jail. So is Dee Sandy, like, does she have enough jobs to connect people to where are we seeing people fall through the gaps there as well?
If you're talking to us, Stephanie, we don't hear you.
She's muted.
I muted myself. Sorry about that. Don't get too excited about that. Somebody always wants to mute me. Hey, Tri-County, what is D. Sandy working with? What group?
I believe it's Tri-County Mental Health.
Okay.
And I don't know the technical title, but I believe she's like the social worker once you get into the jail, and her job is to help you come up with a stable plan so you don't come back.
Yeah.
Got it.
Sonia, do you know, how does Miami County transportation work? It's like $3 each way or something? Is that how it works?
It's $4 one way. So if I have a kid, you know, I might have to get up a couple hours early. If they have access to letting me have the car seat, I would pay $4 for my kid, $4 for my child, get there. Then I would pay $4 to get from there to work. Then I would pay $4 to get back and $4. So, and the kicker is it's not really like the expense, it's expensive, but they can't promise that you're anywhere on time.
No,
That's the scary part of it.
It's nowhere near like the busing system in Dayton. It's nowhere.
Yes.
I mean, they just it's nowhere near. And
Exactly.
It needs improvements. It needs to be revamped and just.
They do have a new director. In her defense, she's stepped it up a lot. But in reality, what they do, you have to have 1 to 2 weeks prior.
Yep.
Again, it's very chaotic. She actually took them. I believe I heard this last year. They used to just do their dispatch on a big giant calendar. And she's actually got them into a computer-based system now. So
why have they never thought about doing like bus stops and stuff, things like that? Like, why is that not an option for our
they've
county?
done that in the past. I believe it was like main to main and maybe market to market. And what they said was people did not utilize it.
How long ago was that though?
I'm not sure. We'd probably have to get with transit and or the continuum to find out.
Yeah.
And again, the biggest barrier is if I have children. When I have children, I can't get them on there. I can't drag the car seats around, so on and so forth. Now throw COVID on top of it. That's even harder. So it's there. We do tokens. If people need it for work, we do steel-toed boots. We do uniforms. We do birth certificates. I mean, pretty much if we can call the employer and prove that you need it for employment, we will figure out how to get the whatever it is that someone needs.
Is there an employer that provides daycare at all? Do we have any in Troy?
Not to my knowledge, no.
It's expensive.
Who came to council? Was that Child Care Choices?
Were you with that group, Sonia?
Yes, I was. I was with that
presented
group.
to council?
Yeah, I was the kid that talked about the repercussions of not having good childcare. It's no fun. A lot of people get hurt that way. So, yeah, and again, Child Care Choices. So, from what I've learned in my short time with them, they used to hold a higher accreditation and work directly with the federal JFS, and I believe now it's 4C. So the 4C lady, and that I believe is out of Montgomery County, she actually spearheaded the whole talk about STAR approval and whatnot. And so I believe she has the direct contract with the state now.
Because there was some strong economic viability for doing that.
I mean, what was the number? Do you recall? It was like $200 a kid per month or something the state was going to pay? Or
yeah, I think it's a little bit more than that, actually. I mean, it's very, very lucrative. In fact, we have one lady that was with us, and she's willing to open up a child care facility. We were trying to procure the old kinder care, but it was bought by I think the company in front of it. I believe it's a car lot of some sort.
Phil Ray bought it. It's a church now.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Mike Curtis?
Mike Curtis started a church there.
I thought it was going to be some kind of an event center.
It's a church.
Huh. Interesting. Well, maybe they'll want to take kids. That's really popular for churches to have daycares.
Yes.
And that's kind of our strongest child cares now.
So what is how much child care service providers do we have around in Troy? Because I don't have little ones, so not many.
Oh, I don't know the exact number, but if I was to do my fingers, I think I would stop before 10.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
so we really don't have very many providers.
Yeah.
You have tons of family providers, right? I mean, the neighbor girl watches
in regards to the STAR rating, they had one provider in Piqua, and I believe they were accrediting maybe 2 in Troy. So they were basically, that was the whole point of us talking to you guys. It's a crisis.
Yeah.
And it was a crisis that just kind of got swept under the rug because COVID was a bigger crisis.
Yeah.
And guess what? If I'm on unemployment, I don't need childcare right now. So
Right.
it's a crisis that we're not feeling as
Right.
hard, but we're going to for sure.
Well, and didn't that childcare that was out? I'm sorry. Didn't that childcare that was out by the old Kroger? Didn't that get shut down?
It got shut down and reopened by an employee. So if you listen to the community says, it stinks.
Yeah.
Another employee who probably was a part of
Right.
reopen it. That's actually the third leg, I believe, that company has
Yes.
been on, from the son to the father to now this mystery owner.
Yes. I would never send a child there. My son went there, and I would never send a child there.
And I have clients that will cry and say, I'm sorry, I can't go to work because that's my option.
Yep.
And they'll say that. And so again, they're not working.
And are they still getting money from JFS at that location? Do you know?
I don't know.
I know they were getting the Title 20 money or whatever, however that
Yeah.
works.
I think
It was
there's
JJJ
a
and-
procedure, and I think Charles Kessler would be able to tell us like exactly, but I believe once you lose your accreditation, I think they had to do like so many things to even get it back. So
Yeah.
I don't know where they are in relationship with that.
Okay.
But I think an investigation is supposed to happen before, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
It got no build.
It got what?
It got no build. They didn't take charges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It got no build last week.
Wow. Yeah. So again, I mean, we know that's the crisis that kind of is intertangled in with employment. So we definitely have to tackle that together.
So what could we do as a group those are all great issues, but what do you think we can do to solve those problems? I mean, transportation, obviously we can look at it and see if there are things. And I talked to Jim Taylor he went to the meeting, whatever we had out there. And I think Jim's a great job for that. And he wants to be involved and has time on his hands and wants to do something. So I think he'll be a great resource for that aspect.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think their only issue is funding. So I think and I don't think that's a hard issue for us to maybe connect. Melissa Kletz, there's a million ways that we could fund. I think it's where everybody has fallen short is getting the employment agencies to kind of see this as a crisis and bring them on board to partner with us. Because it becomes, we're hunting for money to give you employees, but you're paying the employees, but we don't have grant dollars to supply your, bill capacity for you. So we need them to be a part of this.
Right. When it's like, and most of the times on your applications, you're asking, do you have reliable transportation? Well, what if I say no? You know what I mean? So you're asking because you want to make sure I can make it to work. Well, what are you doing to make sure that I can make it to work? It's not your responsibility, but at the same time, if you're working in our community and you're in our community, you want employees from the community.
Yeah. I mean, the return on investment right there, when you talk a business's languages, it makes sense. But then we also have our temp agencies. And actually, when we tried to get the workforce development going, the temp agencies were down to partner. They want to be a part of it. They don't have any problem with partnering. It was procuring funding to make everything happen for it. So if we could get employers here and get them to be willing to even partner, to look at some of the tools, like, is an ERN viable for you? And to talk about what they're noticing, because on the flip side, their soft skills, they're like, look, we don't have soft skills in most of the people. Like, we're struggling procuring factory workers that are doing very minute things. Now, whether that's drug testing or training, I think we need to figure out what that is too from their side as well, because I think there's a couple issues with that, right? So I think soft skills are a big deal. Can we provide some type of training to help people be competitive? I mean, the drug epidemic is the drug epidemic, but I don't we necessarily, I don't think should take that on, but providing, access and awareness of where people could go if they're in those situations would probably be the extent of it. But we're here to make sure people have employment. And then there's also the lens of professional employment, because that's what we're really taught, like teachers and firefighters, and, how do we get people of diversity in our community? Is it something as simple as, do we need to maybe recruit diverse businesses, from restaurants to hair shops? I know I don't like always having to go to Dayton to get a pair of shoes or to get my hair done, things like that. Like, I'd rather stay in Troy, but again, sometimes the shops don't reflect everyone's diversity.
Yeah, or even like in our private sectors, like for government and, job and family and all these places, different places that I've worked at and been affiliated with, there are no people of color that work there.
Yeah,
None.
definitely.
Zero. So it's easy for people to think that they're being, to perceive that they're being discriminated against when there's nobody that looks like them.
Yeah. So I think it's just awareness too. And here's the thing, like, if you don't come from Troy and you're diverse and you're met by the Better Business Bureau and nobody looks like you, so maybe it's just showing our diversity and saying, hey, come to Troy, we're a safe city. Unfortunately, I think that's actually verbiage that people want to hear these days. That's kind of scary, right? That we're a safe city, but maybe people just need to see that. And so maybe it's marketing and education in regards to recruitment.
I don't know your story, Sonia, but Marvin, you came to Troy. What brought you to Troy?
My wife is from Tip City, so that's what brought us here. But we moved into Troy instead of Tip because it was more diverse than Tip, and we really needed that.
Right.
So then I moved my mother and my grandmother here to add to that diversity. But we found that it was a very nice city. I think according to what we're saying here, I really feel that all employers would love to see the city come alongside them and assist with helping to find qualified candidates, or either help with the training assistance to get qualified candidates to fill those roles. Because we know as small business owners, if you find people that work in the community, that's good for referrals. And if they work out, then you find other good people. But then again, you don't have transportation issues like you would with someone that lives outside of the city in some cases. So it's better for us to find ways to employ more people here for the companies that are here.
Yeah.
So if we can put together a assistance, some type of program that lists how we work with people in our community from the bottom up that need help with finding a job, that need help with daycare assistance, that needs help with training, that needs help with whatever that looks like on a career path. I think that if we could come alongside of these companies and tell them, here's what we'd like to do, is there anything else that we should be looking at or talking about? I think that we should look and interview some companies, see what the need is, and then go from there and just let them know how we like to come alongside and help. And I think as far as communicating that out, we have a lot of people in Troy that are finding it very difficult to find jobs. But I think it's difficult because they're not plugged in and they're not connected. So if we can figure out how to educate our community and our city based on the programs that we have, this is going to be wonderful. I think this is the best thing that Troy can do for its people.
One of the things makes me, as I'm listening to all of this, is I think about the United Way, who, works with the majority of organizations that I've just heard listed. I mean, it seems like maybe we could get at least contact information that, I don't know, if I get employed at, I don't know where, Clopay, for example, and I need childcare and I meet with human resources to fill out my stuff or to have my final interview or whatever situation I'm in, whatever phase, and that person has like a little book of resources. We used to have one. When I worked here at the junior high 20 years ago, there was a spiral bound book that most organizations or companies had. And we used it for referrals. And, so if it was childcare that was the issue, you looked up childcare. If it was some kind of mental health situation, you looked up, and there were 2 or 3, ways that a person could get mental health care. But creating, I don't know whatever happened to that. We don't have it anymore at the school, so I'm assuming it probably doesn't exist. But it was
The shelter has something like that. I don't know if they've
Yeah,
updated
we
it or
have the
not, but it's like a
social-
little pocket thing, and it gives you different,
Yeah.
like emergency food, financial, and even breaks it down into like city and the
Mhm.
counties. They've probably updated it since I've worked there. I just keep this on me for
They
personal.
still
and
have those.
professional.
And we have the big books. It's but
Yes.
it's updated like I want to say maybe every 5 years.
Oh,
And they're not used as much. They usually sit on our desks and we pull them out, if somebody needs something. The only thing or critique I would say with that book, it's geared toward poverty. So if I am in situational, right, I'm new to the town and I just need to find child care,
right.
there's nothing there for me. It's only like, JFS, like programs that institute that you're in poverty. I think in truth, if we create a power-based resource book, which is a resource book for everyone, every economic class and diversity, that helps to change the culture as well. And that also markets and educates everyone. But I think if we continue to look at things only in poverty, then it kind of sustains poverty to a degree.
So
I agree.
Who would do that? Partners in Hope, New Path?
Maybe we all could do it. Maybe
Okay.
maybe we go to the continuum of care where everyone, all the leads are held and say, hey, we'd like
Yeah.
all of you to go back and give us 1 to 3 pages of all of your resources based upon all the economic classes, and then we bind it together as the human resources.
Yeah, I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but I just Googled Miami County child care choices, and I'm fairly educated, and this is not a very well,
Yeah.
it's not a very, you can look, I mean,
And it wouldn't even matter.
And it's really, it's a
I don't
referral
think it's-
system too.
Yeah.
So
It's a very good, can you read through that
Yeah.
website?
So
If
it's
you
not
look
going to
for
tell me how much the child care costs. Do I qualify? Do I need a subsidy? I'll be honest with you. I did this as a woman working at Forcia
Huh?
It's just
and had to pick my kids up 2 hours
Yeah,
later
that's
because the
Miami
husband
County
was
choices, right?
racist
this one.
and he was screaming horrible things.
which
And I
one
had to
is
go
that?
get my kids and they were vetted from child care choices. In their defense, they don't think to ask,
I know
is your husband a racist? Are you a racist? They were just vetting a woman for childcare, and that became an issue for me. So even with that, you got to ask every question, and that was Tip City.
Here we go. Click on.
And would it be an issue of also too, like we're talking about these companies, these
those are the
places here in Troy that hire, maybe they don't have the resources, they don't know the resources in the community because, a lot of the HR people probably don't work here or live here, so they don't know what we offer here when it comes to transportation or childcare or anything like that. So when they have people that apply that live here, and they say, no, I don't have reliable transportation, or yeah, I do, but they really don't because they want to get the job. Is it too much for them to give out a resource thing to them of, the local resources in Miami County for childcare, transportation, whatever they're going to need for, like some places give us money for steel-toed boots. A lot of these agencies or a lot of these companies don't know that. Like I know.
Yeah,
that
they
work
don't
at
know
the
that we do
shelter.
it.
Yeah, I know that from working
Right.
at the shelter, but they don't know that they have someone that comes to them that qualifies on every other level, but they don't have the money to buy boots right now.
Yeah,
So,
you're talking
I'm
about
sorry, we
culture
can't give you a
shift,
job,
right? Having the employer
Yes.
think about social services of their employee. It's a total culture shift, but unfortunately it's relevant today. A lot of companies don't know that we'll pay for steel toes until I call or a coworker calls, but we can only do Troy residents because we're granted to Troy residents only.
Right.
So do we need to look at the county because we're the county seat? I mean, it's just a matter of procuring grant money to get the job done. When 211 is instituted, 211 will be an information service that anyone new, been here forever, no matter what class you're from, you can call and it will be a live directory of all the resources within our community. So again, I think, we're running the good race. It's just COVID kind of knocked us off. And then in some areas we have a long way to go. But if we can get the employers to the table and get them open enough to spend some dollars, that's the difference. To spend their dollars, then we will be able to make some change. And it's way cheaper than rehiring people weekly.
So when companies come in to apply, say they come in and say, I want, like Pella, I want to come in and I'm bringing 400 new jobs to the city of Troy. And they go to, say, the Chamber of Commerce, or what's that process? And
They just say they're going to start a company here. That's
And-
all they have to do.
that's all they have to do. Okay.
Robin, do we ask them for any conversation of like a diversity goal or an objective to hire so many, even Troy citizens?
They look at all that when they make a decision to come to a community.
Okay. Would it be bad etiquette, or is it feasible to try to partner with them and say, hey, you know, this is where we're at. We would like a percentage of Troy community members or a diversity goal of sorts?
Boy, I don't
Not that
know.
we throw them out, but could
I
we
don't know.
work?
I just don't know, Sonia, I don't know that you can do anything based on race, age, discriminate. I mean, that's what I just don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
you could say
You
that
can't
there's
tell
some,
companies how to run their business.
Okay,
Well,
well,
not that
remember
you're
our
asking.
HRC meeting, they were talking about diversity goals. And
Yeah.
so HRC Montgomery County had implemented diversity goals within. So I was just trying to see, and you weren't here to give us the legal part of it. Like, is
I'm
that a
not
thing?
that.
He's not in the
lawyer. I
legal-
don't
Oh,
know.
sorry, long hat tonight.
I
But
can
I
tell
was
you how
just
to
wondering,
get
is it
divorced,
feasible?
but that's about it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I don't
even
know
if
if
it was,
that
you know,
was-
kind of a platform that we said, hey, are you willing to partner? You know, we'd love to have so many percent of, even if it's Troy citizens, I mean, it's a start.
Sonia,
And
I
then-
think what you were talking about when it comes to what we were talking about with Mr. Block at the last meeting about having like that diversity clause, I think that was, remember that was ones that were getting government money. So that was the government that had
Okay.
that diversity clause that they had to meet. It wasn't the individual
Okay,
business.
so
if
that
makes
might
sense.
be like if county is taking government contracts or something, maybe it would fit
Yes.
there. Okay.
Right, and there are exceptions for that. I mean, a minority-owned
Yeah.
business has certain different rules and that, you might know that from procurement stuff, that there's different incentives that
Yeah.
exist. But I think that's, I think what you've hit the nail on the head is the problem really is how do we get the people to have the opportunity to go get a job when it's cost prohibitive for them to get there and have their children taken care of.
Exactly.
That's
And then the cliff
really-
effect. So if I take a job, and no one knows this number, and if we can figure it out, we would be amazing. What is the dollar amount that if I take this job, you're taking all my food stamps, you're taking all my benefits, which then scares me or again makes it unfeasible for me to keep a job, and I go back to the instability, the unemployment, you know what I mean? I don't know what that number is, but man, if we could explore that and maybe work with JFS and the job program to give people a chance to get, you know, their feet back together and then walk them out of the system would be amazing.
Who's in charge of JFS now? The old lady got indicted or something, didn't she?
No, that was, no, that was her, Teresa's still the.
Teresa Brubaker,
Yeah,
yes. And
Brubaker.
Charles Kessler, I believe, is over the jobs program. And we did a letter of intent for a grant. We just haven't heard anything. So hopefully, you know, we
For
can get
childcare choices or for who?
no for
Who's we?
JFS.
For JFS.
Yeah. Yeah. Childcare choices is kind of honestly, they're just like, we're a referral system. That's kind of all we think we can be right now. I think they need some support as well. You know, again, we got another county coming in to train instead of our own county. That might be something we need to look at to help with childcare as well.
I think if we went out to the Miami County Job and Family Services site, there's a lot of that information posted there that we're discussing right now. Like it tells people how you can get assistance for daycare, how much you can get for your daycare as well. Through the guideline. So I think we just need to mirror and marry some of that information down to the citizens of Troy so that they can understand what they can and can't get possibly. So I think this would be a really good starting point for us to take a look at to see what kind of resources we already have available.
Marvin, do they know they've got childcare? Do they have anything about transportation listed? Do you see anything?
There's nothing about transportation. Child care, family services, food assistance.
There's also a WIOA program that will train you
Yes.
as long as the job is like meets cost of living. So you can have some training as well. But a lot of people don't understand, like, I want to be an STNA. Well, that cost of living doesn't suffice. So again, what I hear from JFS is it's out there. People don't get it. And what I hear from the other side is it's not there. I don't know to get it, or I don't have the internet, or that's not what they said when I got there. So I think it's just we're the bridge for a lot of things.
Right before COVID hit, wasn't there, aren't we doing like a 411 or an 811?
211.
211.
Yeah.
Which is
That
for
ever go through?
That's why
United Way.
before. Because they work with all these different organizations. I thought maybe that would be a single place, or maybe Sean Ford is somebody we could tap into, as well as, Teresa. I mean, it seems like maybe I don't know that we need to be doing it, but if we could get those heads of those various service organizations together, maybe, kind of like, hey, this is the charge. What do you guys think about that? And maybe they could kind of pound it out.
Yeah.
Well, we could make a recommendation from this committee that we should have one unified source. And I think that's kind of what the consensus building that I see here. Can you explain to some people may not know, including myself, what 211 actually is? It's like a 911, right? But for social services?
It's a resource directory on a live phone. So anyone can call in. I believe it's 24/7. And, if you're homeless or if it's a domestic violence, they would just connect you to the relevant resource within our community. And that is supposed to be at the United Way. I'm pretty sure they got almost all the parts and pieces for that.
But that's not like, hey, I need a daycare provider because my daycare provider called in sick today and I'm going to lose my job because I
Now, I think they will, because it's relevant and they're very aware that that's relevant. But the reality of it is you're going to get a handful of places that are probably full, have a waiting list, and we all know it. So I think we need
good
more
ideas, but no real good solutions.
Yeah.
No immediate solutions.
Yeah. So
it's almost like we are, for the childcare, it's almost like we have to, like if we have private citizens that have a desire to become a daycare owner or childcare provider, to get them to the resource that they can get their proper training, so they can open maybe a childcare center here in Dayton, in Troy, or something to where we can bring the resource here instead of them having to go down to Dayton or up to Piqua.
Yeah.
Childcare.
Or maybe, I don't know, do we approach places like the center, places like Green Street and Piqua? Do they want to expand? What's the barrier? Again, they do after school program. Is there a latchkey program that could be developed within the schools? Is it Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or an after school program, like thinking outside the box for working mothers? But again, they got to land on first shift. So
question, you just said latchkey for, so we don't have that here? Okay.
Nope.
So that is, I'm sorry, I've always been in a place, and I don't have little ones, so I didn't know that most school system has a latchkey program to where the kids, once they get out of school, they could just transition over.
So the kids here in Troy either got to go home, go to the Lincoln Center, or go to the rec.
Or have an extracurricular. Like if you do, some days might be Future Begin, some days you might go to Girls on the Run.
Right.
That's kind of what I did instead of a latchkey. I mean, we had like Good News Bible Study where I came from, and that's where I was. So but we do have those other entities. So maybe it's, again, what do you need to expand, or are you even capable? Is it even realistic? We don't know.
Now, is that something, I'm sticking onto this latchkey program, but is that something that we could kind of get with the YMCA
The
to?
Y does not, our Y in Troy, I don't think that they have any intention of wanting to expand that. We approached them when we did this whole thing last year, and what they have fits their facility, and they're comfortable with that.
Do you think the Lincoln Center, do you think Shane would be interested in something like that since they're expanding? I mean, they are building and it's going to be bigger, and I know they already do like
Makes
that.
sense to me. It's the at-risk
Right.
neighborhood. It's the
Literally
need of the
is.
neighborhood.
Right. And my son, I know they provide transportation because my son was a part of their after-school tutoring program. So I know they provide
Yeah.
transportation. They come around, they get you from each school, and they bring you back. They provided snacks and everything. So, I mean, if they're
Doesn't
going to be
hurt to ask.
expanding, you know, they could probably expand the after-school program as well.
Yeah, and it definitely doesn't hurt to reach out and ask. I mean, I don't know, but okay. So, Robin, I hear what you're saying. We need solutions. So we'll put on a solution hat. Do you want to go through our list again? Should we call out these numbers?
Yeah, I
What do
think
you mean?
So go through the list and see what needs to be put on for
Yeah.
education.
So like D.
For discussion?
Did you have one?
Oh, every meeting he
Written
had
down?
us go through the initiatives that were submitted by HRC to see which ones fall under each team.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, I did want to bring up the transportation really quick. There is the Miami County Continuum of Care. They gave 9,000 rides last year to.
Yeah, that's rides to work. That's the one we were talking about.
F&P, yeah. So, I mean,
Yeah, their biggest barrier, Kane, is funding, support for it. And the reality, though, when you're dealing with at risk, right? I might go to work today and I don't go to work tomorrow. I mean, there is reality when you're dealing with instability that you're going to have some instability issues too. But we do have a twofold because we also want professional, you know, who will ride or maybe doesn't need a ride but needs decent childcare. So B and D makes sense because they say
Yeah.
work stuff.
Right.
Maybe G if we're talking about ERNs and having social workers and things like that. I'm thinking of H, but I'm not sure. Help me, guys, because you're mandated to work. I'm thinking of probation and parole when I look at that.
Yeah, because I mean that's part of one of your conditions, at least for probation. I can't speak for parole because they have different conditions than we do, but probation, one of the conditions is to obtain and maintain employment at all times, unless you're on disability or Social Security.
Gotcha. Maybe that's something we should add. I don't know if a lot of people realize there's something. I got trained in SOAR. I can expedite a disability claim within 90 days.
Oh, wow.
And that's something that I did so I can be a tool to the continuum and to Partners in Hope and to families. So when we do have people that, you know, are unemployable, that is a service. So if we want to look at that further, it's SOAR. Maybe J, because whatever employment tools that we'll put in the toolbox.
Did we say I?
That makes sense, though. No, I skipped I, but you're right. I. Maybe L. To be able to relate to the employers and the employees.
I don't understand L. Who is there?
Interviews regarding their perceptions. Interviews regarding. Is this like a town hall type thing, Marvin?
I think so.
Okay.
It relates to HRC members. When I was compiling notes, it was attached to an ongoing speaker program to educate the HRC regarding work history, and with interviews regarding their perceptions, needs, goals, and ideas.
Okay, so K and L go together.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense.
N for sure.
In,
Yeah, that's what she just said.
oh, okay. I thought you said
Is
something else.
CSC Chamber of
Oh,
Commerce?
it's okay.
Yes.
CSC Chamber of Commerce.
Would O be like maybe partnering with the chamber or whatever entity for
Well, I
community
thought O
awareness?
I thought we were gonna use O for community relations. the
Okay.
community relations.
I'm fine with that too. Yeah. You know, Mr. Simmons said he has some type of abridged or shortened way to become a firefighter. So we might want to explore.
The apprenticeship program,
Yes, we might want to explore that in this.
and he'll come and talk about, and you will hear about that on Thursday night from Tom.
Perfect.
Yeah.
He could very well be the model for thinking outside the box after his presentation, because I think he's really thought that through and wanting to get
It's
more
been very
people.
successful.
Yeah. And then P, I think
again,
P
that
again.
So yeah,
Sorry.
people can apply for that through the city website.
Through the city website?
When I think, I mean, you know, we're such a hub of education. We've got, you know, the Career Center as well as Edison right there on Looney Tunes Road. You know, I mean, it's like, why are we that in these areas? Like, I just think of like when you mention childcare, for goodness sake, they both deal with ECEC, you know, and when we talk about food, I mean, there's just so many kinds of training, customized training programs that any of these organizations could get.
Right.
It does the same thing.
Way.
Yeah. That's actually a good, let's check what is JFS's training for people. If we're hearing employers say people don't have soft skills,
yeah,
let's make sure that they're getting relevant training. Because I remember back in the day when I was living generational welfare, they would teach me to comb my hair and brush my teeth. And I would be like, I already know, you know what I mean? So let's make sure the training is relevant so they are successful.
Well, it comes with certification so that, like you said, I mean, they can qualify for some of that state funding,
yes,
you know, national funding. I mean, you know, what are the big ticket items and how do we get there?
Exactly. It's really smart.
Do you think there's a perception that there aren't jobs available in Troy? I heard Marvin say that earlier. And yet we get from council, we hear all the time, we have hundreds of jobs. We can't find employees. Well, tell us how to get them.
I think that just comes with the disconnect of what kind of employees are they looking for and who is saying that there's not enough work. You know what I mean? So why are they saying there's not enough work? Do they have a criminal history? Do they not know where to look? You know, and it's the employers. We don't have enough people to employ. Well, where are you looking for your employers? You know, or where your employees?
I'm pretty sure Clopay does not have a problem hiring.
No, they don't. They're one of the ones I know for sure. They will hire felons, they'll hire people with questionable backgrounds. They hold job fairs all the time. They hold open interviews all the time. They're probably one of the most well-known employers in Troy that will hire you if you have a questionable background.
The other thing we hear from employers is that you cannot get people to show up who will work.
Right.
They cannot drug test, clean.
Right.
And those are the biggest problems. They hire, but people don't show up.
And there is some truth to that for sure. So, you know, I always tell people like there are some people that are just, you know, don't want to work. And so how do we provide access for, you know, the good apples instead of the one in the bunch? And maybe some of that showing up is the crisis that it takes to get there. But then there is an epidemic going on too. So there is kind of that twofold, but she's definitely right.
Also too with drug testing, now that we're getting marijuana cards in Ohio and people can get those. So, you know, are these employers acceptable of that? Are they saying, you know, if you test positive for marijuana, it's just across the board? No, thank you.
Yeah.
But if I have a medical card saying I can use this, you know, how is that any different from alcohol use? You know, so I can see where they're coming from with that. But then I can see the company as well, like we're a no drug policy. But if I have a card that says that I'm using it for medicinal purposes, of course I'm going to test, you know, positive. So I know that this presents a problem that we haven't been able to address. It's just now coming about where more people are getting that. But I mean, I think that's something we can discuss with employers too. It's like more and more people, I mean, we're seeing it in probation. More and more people are coming in, and it states in their conditions, they are not allowed to use drugs or alcohol while on probation. But if we have someone that comes in with a medical card, we're taking it to the judge and they're allowed to use it while they're on supervision. It's just something that we're going to have to get reacclimated with when it comes to this stuff. And are employers looking at that? Are they saying across the board, no, boom, you tested positive, you're out the door?
Well,
Like,
the other problem you're going to find is that if they're operating equipment,
right.
Yeah.
it's a safety issue. So whether you've got a card or not, you still can't operate.
Right, but
Now,
right, here's the
FMP
thing,
is
just because
actually
I have
more
a
lax.
card, right, and just because I have a card and just because I'm testing positive doesn't mean I used in the past 24 hours. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's a
I know
whole thing of that
FMP
as well,
games
too.
came down to the point where you have to have, of course, you have to pass the test to get in there. But I think if you fail one, there's some kind of grace.
Yes.
And you can retake it. So I think there are some places that are being graceful, but at will state, red
Absolutely.
state,
You can get fired for any reason, right?
Yeah, I know a lot of people that are like, we're not budging on that, but I do understand
And
that.
I get it
So
from
is
both
the
sides.
issue though, are people becoming legal maybe then? I don't know if that's something that we even want to, you know, if we need to or not, but maybe that's the access or the
Somehow if you can address work ethic.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think, or even if it's a thing, if they test positive, you know, are we looking at, okay, you tested positive for this drug, but you meet every other requirement for being hired, you know, here's MCRC, can you go, you know, get an assessment from them and see if you need some help. And if they say, no, you're good, and you come back and test negative, then we can consider hiring you. Because some people, I mean, for me, if I'm an employer and someone tests positive for heroin, to me, that's more serious than testing positive for marijuana. Do I think people can stop using marijuana to get a job as opposed to stopping heroin to get a job? Absolutely. I feel like if you really want the job, it's easier to stop using something like marijuana than it is opposed to stop using heroin, if that makes sense.
Well, I just looked up Clopay and they say immediate hiring, second and third shift.
Oh yeah,
And
they're always
I think
hiring.
that's where I mean, if we're gonna look at solutions, I think the solution is
Troy Medic
looking.
1, respondent 5 on Stein Court, 5
But
on Stein Court.
There's
From
personal
the rate
initiative.
to now.
No, but the issue is there anything we as the HRC could do to encourage second and third, or to facilitate second and third shift employees? I think that's the primary question.
Yeah, we provide child. Yeah.
Well, that and childcare is harder to come by on second and third shift too.
Especially right now.
I don't know. Again, it's a bit tricky because when people own their own businesses, but like swing shifts, I know Clopay has that awesome like weekend only.
Yeah.
If we could condense with bigger hours, could we match childcare with that for, you know, is there some kind of something in that nature?
I'm standing here trying to even find a place where a child care facility could go. I know there was some discussion if the schools went that you were going to open up some elementary schools, and there was some private people who were talking about converting a elementary school into a daycare center, but there's not, I mean, I can't even think of a building that could hold.
The closest third shift childcare is like Dayton.
Yeah.
I think it's downtown off Main Street.
And it's pretty
And
sketchy.
I wouldn't take my kid. You know,
Yeah, what is the
like,
cost of that?
Yeah,
You know, I walked around and talked to community members last week, and I talked to people who left their jobs recently because they couldn't afford childcare, and so it was cheaper for them to leave their job and work and stay at home and babysit their kids themselves because they couldn't afford $800 a day because they had 5 kids and they couldn't afford to have all 5 of them in daycare.
Yeah. It's a real thing. I remember giving $150 to my daycare and $150 to me. But the only reason I did it was so my kids could see that you had to work. That like, but not everybody has that luxury.
This is your
to
10-minute
those.
warning.
We have 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
So did we land
Okay.
on
Is-
initiatives?
Is N the last letter that we're adding?
Yeah, N was the last one we talked about.
And
I don't know if we didn't really go any farther than that.
NPS, maybe?
Well, we talked about transportation.
Q.
Businesses. So in those, as far as businesses, what could HRC do to influence businesses? Like what would our role be?
I think meeting with the HR people and like we talked about the resource manual, like coming up with a better resource manual, not just for, impoverished people, but for anybody across the board. Like I said, maybe a lot of these companies, businesses don't know about the resources that are right here in Troy where they have their business. And so they're turning down people that need something that they can easily get from an agency.
We need to help create funding. Do you think, is that something that we could do or connect? Not us directly, but I'm talking about for the rides to work. Like if Jim comes in the continuum, if they're doing 900 plus rides, can we help to facilitate the conversation perhaps with, I don't know, the Better Business Bureau, the employer?
But you gotta find out what they're already doing.
Say it again.
You need to find out what they're already doing.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. We start with Jim. So maybe we have Jim come in, the continuum of care, to talk about the transportation part. We start with, maybe we start with Mr. Funderburg and Chief Simmons in regards to some employment. I'm interested in numbers. Like, I always hear that diversity, like people don't apply. How do we know that? I want to see applications. I want to know how people know what color you are and if you are or not applying. I really want to see applications if it's possible. Are we able to vet applications? How about, can we start with the city of Troy, like a diversity goal? Is that, I guess that's not possible, right? But could we intentionally say that if we're vetted to create and build capacity for minorities, I mean, how do we not, right? How do we not have some type of goal? Or
I think there's a question Q&A time.
Yeah,
each of the gentlemen on Thursday night.
So we can ask Tom on that on Thursday.
Okay.
Seems like too, I mean, we're working, with the city, so why could we not make a proposal for a diversity goal and send that to Troy City Council?
That's what I'm thinking, right? Like, that's what we're here for, because if not, I don't know.
And I mean,
diversity is diversity, so.
You can have a goal, but unless you have people apply, you will never meet that goal.
I gotta know, how do we not know they haven't applied? That's just what I gotta, like, I just need to see an application, I guess, because I've talked to so many people in the community, and they've said they've applied, they've tried. So again, let's do that goal if we can.
That's a good question for Tom.
Yeah, that's a good question for Tom.
Okay. Diversity goal. Could we look at the ERN? Do you want me to get some language, some verbiage on an ERN to see if that is something that might be feasible? I know the chamber loved it. They just, again, I'm not sure why we didn't move forward with it, but
I'm interested in knowing more about that.
Okay.
Yeah, why not?
I think that's good.
And then childcare choices, I guess we also, maybe we can pick their brains at some point in regards to childcare.
So maybe after this Thursday's meeting with Tom and Mark, we figure out, I mean, even if we stayed for 10 minutes after, like, what do we need to do and who do we need to schedule in to talk to?
For the next one, yeah.
Yeah.
Because getting some of that information, I think, will help guide us.
And then are we still following Mr. Block like as a case study that we talked about? I know he's not here tonight, but I don't want to let that.
He's there.
Oh, sweet. Well, we don't want to let that go. I think spending some time and following that as well. Don't necessarily know how to, but if we can all wrap our heads around that.
I just want to add something. When you mentioned talking about do you want to invite for the next meetings and staying extra 10 minutes. If you are going to stay as a group and discuss something, it has to be public.
Yeah.
So you have to do it during the meeting.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Salome.
This is a really cheesy idea.
4 minutes.
Okay, I'll speak fast with my cheese. Like whatever. So we work through this diversity goal, and maybe we come up with some quote unquote criteria. And so let's say CLOPE, for example, because I've heard you talk about them, and I don't know what the criteria would even be. So,
We can't hear you.
You're breaking up on
You're
us.
breaking up.
okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Good.
So
No.
Oh, it must be good what she's saying. Try again. You know it's good. That's why you're glitching out.
I don't know why I'm glitching out. My thought is, so we come up with some criteria for these various, companies or whatever. And for example, I heard you talk about CLOPE, and it sounds like they're doing some, some things. I don't know if they're working with diversity or, whatever our criteria is. And then those companies, organizations that quote unquote meet this HRC criteria, maybe they get some kind of goofy little stamp, like HRC approved. And so that gets added to wherever it is that we are, showing
a good idea.
jobs are HRC approved. And so, it's going to make me feel like if I'm trying to apply in Troy or move, that maybe I'm more comfortable looking at those companies first, because at least I know they must be thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Very good idea.
Good solution.
Yeah, 'cause it doesn't force them to comply, but it kind of gives them an incentive, like, oh, people might be more apt to apply to me if they see that I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty
Maybe
much how
eventually it
CLOPE
gets-
is filled, right? One person says they're cool, then 10 more come, and
Yep.
Definitely.
Also on the hard data, like we should maybe put out some kind of a request for, what's their application rate based on, race. And so not to harsh on them, but maybe help them in finding more people to apply that are diverse.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I had a teacher tell me that she couldn't apply to our school system unless we had an opening. Can we maybe just accept some applications in the name of HRC? Because again, if there are not jobs open, then maybe that's why no one's applying.
Well,
you got to have a requisition first. Like,
I don't have any time left, but basically for schools, I can speak to that. It's a continuum, and it's like a big open website for the entire Dayton area. Anybody can apply to that continuum, and then you click on the school district that has the jobs that you're looking to connect with. So if Troy per se doesn't have a job, which we only had one position open this entire year for the whole district, then you would have to connect your app to that job.
That's what I hear though, that people are going, there's 1 to no jobs, and you got to know some, like basically they can't break into Troy City schools.
Yeah, you got to know someone.
So maybe we need to look at that. I mean, can we get some aids? Can they get
I
some?
will say for the city of Troy, sometimes we have 10 to 15 applications already in line.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
it sounds like we have to look towards private employers for right now to kind of break that mold. You know what I'm saying? Like these 400 at Tela, 50 at IVEX or whatever, maybe go out to those private employers and start there, maybe. if the city of Troy doesn't have anything, let's go out to the private organizations and seeing how.
But if the city of Troy has 15 applications for a job, what's to stop them from getting 10 more and just opening up that pool?
It's a process. You're gonna have to talk to Tom because there are civil service exams.
Yeah, and you get military, there's lots
It's
of different
very-
things
it's
there for
very
that part.
complicated.
But I think
Okay.
we talked a lot about, like, I don't know how to say this, but like the getting the from the poverty, I think, you know, Sonia, that's obviously where you're at. You know, what about, you know, the executive position? I mean, I know I had a really good friend from high school. He's an African-American, had a great executive job. Stephanie's going to know who I'm talking about in a second. He moved to Columbus. Why did he move to Columbus? I don't know. I mean, he's going to say, I moved because I got a better job. I did the different things. But I mean, did he feel comfortable? Is there a recruitment? Can you join the Rotary? Can you join the Kiwanis? Do you feel comfortable doing those things, interacting? I don't know. I know we got like 30 seconds, but I think I don't want to lose focus on that part about diversity.
I agree. No, I agree. It's both sides for sure.
Yeah.
You know,
so there was a professional person, and he didn't get into our school system, and I believe he's a principal in Columbus now. But he would definitely tell his story of what he went through if we ever need to hear it.
My husband retired 30 years from the Air Force, and he applied at Hobart, but he never got called.
Yeah, I think we could wrangle about 200 people in those positions.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a very good meeting.
Okay, I'm telling you right now, when you see these notes, you're gonna understand the mind of Stephanie Johnson and how spastic and whacked out it is. So good luck.
I gotta hear city council. We gotta go. Where is it, a Bravo room?
Bravo room.
All right.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Good meeting. Have a good night.
We'll email. We'll have to do it via email for the meeting, for next meeting.
Or on Thursday.
Okay. We'll decide on Thursday.
Sorry, what was that?
Our next meeting, determining when. And
thanks, everybody.
Bye. But we'll talk about it Thursday. Sorry.
Bye now.
I'm gonna let you close it up.
We're gonna get out of here for her.